Okay, we have a quorum present, so we will go ahead and start the next portion of our meeting, which is our fiscal year 2019 budget requests. And we will turn that to Deputy Superintendent Scott Jones.
Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. To my right is Assistant Superintendent Grange. To my left is Deputy Superintendent Stallings and Norman. What I'd like to do is orient the board members either to the backups or on the screen displayed above here. As we continue down or up the road to awesome as far as public education goes and getting the resources for our most precious resources, which is our teachers and our students, we have these agenda item to periodically update you on progress, what's been presented, what's been discussed. We won't take too much time in this meeting because we also know you meet every week, every Thursday too, but we do have some key takeaways or updates that we need to give to you. So the first document I'd like to orient you to is the summary that we prepare. You recognize this as part of the ongoing process that we started pretty much right after the last legislative session ended. The requests so far with enrollment growth, percentage increases to the value of the WPU have been briefed to the Public Education Appropriations Committee. That briefing is also provided for your review in the board backups or the board docs backup that you see here. It's titled the MSP program presentation. So if you have any questions or concerns about that, no change to the dollar amounts on this, still seeking the 5.5%, so more to follow in that. As part of that same briefing that we did give to Public Education Appropriations, the chairs identified particular programs within Category B of your proposal that went to the governor first, and then is of course in front of the legislature right now. I would ask you to go ahead and review those particular programs that are part of that briefing. Yesterday, USDB, they presented their request, which is the USDB steps and lanes and USIMAC. So one change or one update that I do need to make to the summary and advise you all on is that during the course of the presentation, it was identified that they're seeking $450,000 of an ongoing appropriation for the purpose of USIMAC, and then $500,000 of one-time funding over the course of 3 years. So it doesn't necessarily change the $950,000 total that we're seeking. We just need to make, I'll just move the $500,000 over into the one-time column just to make sure that we're keeping the integrity of this particular summary. We've also embarked on or have presented pieces and parts, well, most if not all of the Category D requests, the research analysts / program evaluators, the risk specialist, the financial operations, the restorative discipline services, and the USBE charter school support personnel were all briefed just recently in public education appropriations as well. More to follow, obviously. You know, they don't make any decisions at this point, but as we, the process is, as we progress through it, then we'll notify you when they'll start to make their motions and all that. Ahead of us is some more presentations on MSP. Jamie and I will be there tomorrow while Natalie supports the Finance Committee on that too, and Sid and the superintendent up on public education appropriations. So we've got everything covered, and we just, I feel very optimistic and positive. Just one other thing that I want to talk to is, as part of the presentation that occurred back up in the Category B, is the, let's see, yeah, is the transportation and NEST funding. We're going to further develop those with the BAs and then also with you or as part of the Finance Committee agenda tomorrow. Chair Wright asked those to be put on. There's going to be just discussions on those. I tend to look at everything that occurs as more of an opportunity than anything to work together to ensure that, you know, with any ask in these particular ones is that, you know, more to follow, that we can, again, discuss this, see what the way ahead is. I know there were some concerns that were brought up about those two particular programs, so I think we're on the right road, that we'll be able to discuss these further with the BAs, in particular Todd Hauber, maybe Rob out of Alpine, with the pupil transportation. And I know there's a lot of interaction on the NEST funding and the way ahead for the regression formula and all that. So more great things to follow there too. Very, very positive about this. Before I leave this summary, I do want to make a note to you that we did provide that really great graphic chart of all of our programs. That's also in the backups. I don't know if you can pull that one up. Let's take, yeah, it's the, it's the it's just a numbered PDF. Doesn't have a title on it. Yeah, I think so. Oh. This one. Yeah, this is a great tool for you to use or too, because when you drill down on any one of the particular programs, it takes you to the COBE that offers even more definition or explanation of a particular program that you see there. So remember, it's divided up into the parts with the MSP or the flow through to the districts and the office budget and then the capital part too. So it's really good. It seems to be a really good diagram that's very user friendly. I know it looks really busy when you first open it. The key takeaway with this though is those amounts that are attached to the programs are this year's funding, are what we're currently operating with or on within those particular programs. So I just don't want that to get confused with like the budget summary that we presented, because that's their future asks or future requests on this. So this is where we were funded as a result of all the efforts that took place in the prior legislative session, in particular increases either to the value of the WPU or for particular line item or programs on that too. So we wanted to orient you to that. So if we could go back to the summary, as part of this ongoing process, opportunities present themselves all the time. And we want to take just a few more minutes here and talk a little bit more about the restorative discipline services request and some opportunities that have presented themselves to us along that particular request or some of the bills that are associated with that. We've also added for your review some of the talking points that I believe Patty's going to go through, or Angie, to at this point. That is in the backups as well, if you could click on that. These are the ones that Patty's going to cover with you now. A lot of times, or sometimes, we might feel like, oh, this might be overwhelming, but when we're presented with opportunities to further develop or enhance programmatic funding for our kids and for our teachers, we want to make sure we put that in front of you before we proceed any further with the legislature. So if it pleases you, Chair, I'll turn it over to the other deputies.
We've had several legislators ask us what additional support we need in helping our LEAs with implementation of what was last year HB 239, and currently there's an amendment with HB 132 really talking about restorative justice and restorative discipline. And as we spoke through that and had some clear communication, some ideas came up that could really make a strong impact in meeting the needs of our LEAs in implementing this. The thing that was truly recognized, and I know how many of you were able to listen at the legislature when we were talking about the need to have the FTEs, the $335,000, to be able to have someone here at USBE to really talk through what kind of services and support we can give LEAs. But as we spoke to it further, there is a definite need right now to be able to establish some form of a boot camp, and I did have our LEAs come in and get that on the ground training right now immediately to help them with this. An idea that comes behind this is the fact that our higher education is doing a great job in talking about what teachers need in classroom management. They're able to know what students should know and be able to do, what kind of policies, procedures, practices as a classroom teacher to have classroom management, and then to handle those instances when students are speaking out or when students aren't on task, or those types of small behaviors that they're able to easily work with. Then we had HB 239 last year really talking about restorative justice and what does that look like. With restorative justice, there's some infractions that no longer are referred on to juvenile court. And with that, our teachers are left now and our administrators are left in an in-between of saying, what are our new support systems that we have that are available to us, and how do we use those? Who do we contact? What does it look like? And most importantly, training on de-escalation. So if there's a fight outside a teacher's classroom right now, if they walk outside, do we know what they're supposed to do? and that's what they're asking. Have I done the, yeah, what is it that they're supposed to do? If a student is having some sort of trauma in their life and they have a breakdown in the classroom and they throw a desk and they are in trauma at that moment, what's a teacher supposed to do? Do they evacuate the classroom? Do they try and calm the student down? What is it they're supposed to do? And if we haven't answered this question for our teachers, then we've actually placed both the student at higher risk and our teachers at risk, both for themselves, the student in that trauma moment, and all the rest of the students in the classroom. So with that in mind, this idea of having a boot camp, being able to say, in this situation, if there's a fight outside your classroom, here's the steps in what you do. This is what's in statute, here's what's in law, and here's a training on de-escalation that can then help support our students and the rest of the culture within the school in helping support these students. So if we're following this along, it's really talking about the training that would accompany the request for the FTE. And the initial request was for an office specialist, but really the type of specific skills that this person would need to have is more of a program specialist with the restorative discipline and an education specialist along with it. Go ahead.
Are there any board member questions? Okay. Board member Reby.
Thank you so much for your work on this. This is really important. Our teachers are going to be very happy that they know exactly what to do. It is a really hard decision to make, and it is hard to see kids in trauma reacting when they should be thinking a little bit more. So thank you for your guidance on this. Thank you so much.
Okay. Board member Hanson.
So it looks like you're asking for more. Is that right?
Yes, the original request was for $335,000.
Okay, so do you need a motion from me, Chair Cummins?
Yes.
I move that we add the personnel that have been described for the restorative justice, restorative discipline services, and make that appropriation 545, or make that ask $545,000.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
The way ahead then is that the next the next public ed appropriations meeting is tomorrow, Friday. Again, focused on MSP. In the subsequent week or next week at the Tuesday public ed appropriations meeting, we've been asked to present some detailed information on systems. You know, we're in the process of using subject matter experts to review our systems at this level. You hear the term end-to-end, topics like that. So we're putting that presentation together. So I just wanted to make sure that you know that we'll try to share that with you prior to the Tuesday meeting, because we know you're not meeting again until the next Thursday. And then Natalie has some other information regarding that particular presentation as it relates to Cactus, right? Or, you know, licensing.
As part of our initial estimates and discussion about the Cactus system, there was a fund balance remaining in the educator licensing fund. The board was planning on using as, and part of that discussion, as we've looked through the supplemental appropriation bills last year, that fund balance currently is being directed to be deposited into the Uniform School Fund at the end of this fiscal year. The funds are still there. They're sitting under the care of the Board of Education, but we do not have the authority to appropriate or expend those funds this year. And so part of the request that we'll be making next week is that those funds be transferred into the Board of Education's budget so that we can continue to move forward with the review and update of our systems. One other item we just wanted to brief the board on in the event that you get questions. We run the Carson Smith Scholarship Program. We make payments quarterly and run the lottery quarterly. For the first time in the history of the program, we have enough students to utilize all of the funding that we have appropriated to us. As of today or as of yesterday when we ran the lottery, all existing students that have eligible scholarships and that have continued eligibility continue to receive funding in their scholarships through the end of the year, but we are unable to add anyone new to the program. That means that those students who applied in the third quarter will enter into the lottery and only a portion of them will be funded. We made this report and this information we provided to the Public Education Appropriation Committee yesterday. All that data is included in the backup on board docs, so you can review that as well. The information, we're estimating that if we wanted to fund every scholarship that is applied as of yesterday, through the end of the year, we'd need an additional $100,000. We have mechanisms in place, which are the lottery, so that we won't overexpend that scholarship. But in the event that we wanted to add more students this year, we would need those funds. We also estimated that we'd need an additional around $700,000 on top of the statutory increase to continue to grow that scholarship next year. I believe the committee was very receptive and engaged and encouraged by the discussion. And just to refresh your memory, these are general education funds. It's not education dollars that pay for the scholarship, and so that request is separate and on top of any of the education funds that are being requested for the LEAs.
Board Member Belknap?
You said general education. Did you mean general fund? When you said that, just for clarity.
Yes, so the Carson Smith Scholarship is funded out of the general fund.
Okay, I thought so.
Not education.
But that really wasn't my question. I just wanted to make sure for clarity. Who has oversight of making sure that these students really are truly applicants that should be receiving this? And is that a local level? Is that here? Because there's been some grumblings that that's maybe not being done appropriately. And so that would bring to question it being full now.
Yeah, so the special education section has individuals who review and approve those applications for eligibility. There's documentation required. I can't speak to all the specifics that they go through, but I think that's a question that they could answer for you.
Yeah, go ahead, Ange.
And Board Member Belknap, just as a side note, we are working, as you'll remember, one of the listed items on our staff requested ask for legislation. We are currently working with Senator Zender on a Carson Smith scholarship bill. If there are some issues that you'd like our staff to kind of bring to their attention, now would be a time that we could address some of those. If there's anything we can do in statute, I just want to raise that.
We'll go ahead and add I did actually add the presentation for what was presented along the lines of Carson Smith as titled Initiative Programs. We did that yesterday in Public Education Appropriations for not only Carson Smith, but the Canvas LMS K through 12 system or program. So you can refer to those slides, and as you all know, you always have the opportunity to go and listen to the audio of what was said, particular to these programs. Okay.
Board Member Lear?
This is back to Carson Smith from Angie in response to her request or her statement to Laura. But personally, because this is a general funded program, and it has to be because it's a voucher to private schools, essentially, based on parent choice, I think it's I'm trying to think how to say this. I think it's not appropriate for public education funds to pay for a number of employees than to monitor that general education use of funds. So I'm not, hang on, so I just want to make sure that it's a parent choice. And if those parents choose those schools, our job is to see that the very basic minimum of the law is met. They have IEPs, the number of hours are determined, and I don't want any other additional monitoring, speaking as one board member, for a program that's funded through general education funds. General funds, not education funds.
It's easy to do.
Yes.
Just for point of clarity on the Carson Smith Scholarship, there is a portion of that specific appropriation unit that is dedicated to the portions of the FTEs that are doing that work. So that's one good thing about the cost accounting and program modules that we've set up, is that we can track those things now and provide some accountability for the use of those general funds versus our education dollars.
With that, unless Deputy Stallings or Deputy Norman have any additional input on this concludes the update for the state fiscal year 19 budget requests. Again, subject to any questions or guidance from you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, then